most money in property is not made because the houses go up or that the equity is really crazy. Even the money you make in property is the money of not paying rent. Buying a property as a first-time buyer is difficult. Budgets, pricing, location. I don't think stamp duty is involved as a first-time buyer, but let's watch a video to find out how easy it is to buy a house in the UK as a first-time buyer with a normal to average salary.
Location, we've all heard that before, but it's worth considering the location because you can change an awful lot of things about a property, but you can't change where it is. Now, when you buy a property in a certain area, you're really buying into the amenities of that area. It could be that there's a railway station close by that makes it more attractive to commuters. It could be there are good schools, it could be shops, cinema.
Yeah, so when buying a property, one thing that people assume is the first step is to go and view houses or find the perfect city. Or for buying a house, it's good to have a location already in mind. But the ones who succeed are the ones who are flexible to have an idea of where they want to be. Oftentimes, they want to be close to friends or family or close to amenities like schools, like shopping, like train stations, like buses. So location is important, but it's often, I would say, nearer the end stages when you need to consider location. Anyways, just my opinion.
Country walks, you name it. All these things will affect the price of a property, and it makes it more attractive for you to buy. It will also make it more attractive when you come to sell it. Now, don't fall for the estate agent's hype that an area is up and coming. You don't want to pay more than the property's worth, and it may well be that that area is up and coming, but you don't want to pay for the future potential of the area. You want to pay for what it is now.
Fair point. Never buy potential, buy where it is. You can't predict the future. Look what happened with the pandemic. You can't predict it. So buy the exact value of the house. Don't buy because the area will go up. In this current market, people are bidding more than the asking price on properties. So in some areas, it's a bidding war. So just buy the value of the house. Don't bid above the value of the house because you think in the future the area will increase. It probably can, but you can't predict that.
Now, unfortunately, these days we also have to consider what the crime is like in an area. If there's been a history of break-ins, then that's something that you need to take into consideration. Now, another thing that's worth doing is maybe to stay in the area that you're going to buy in. If you like a particular area, it's probably worth you getting an Airbnb for a night just to see what...
No, don't get an Airbnb, move to that area. If you are really invested in an area and you plan to buy a house for 5 years, getting a 6-month tenancy might make a lot more sense. Or maybe not even move to it, but spend a lot of time in the area. Start shopping in the area. Even though it might take you hours to travel there, get used to how the area is like, the parking, the locals, the local shops. You know, just go on I know saying Facebook is a bit weird. Go on Facebook to see in terms of like what groups are there in the area and what sort of things are active. One other thing is look for betting shops. If an area has a lot of betting shops, it's an area to stay out of because I would say more well-off areas have less betting shops or none. In the UK especially. So look for an area where there is either boutique shops or that there are no betting shops or cash for your product type of shops in the area, because then that kind of shows you what kind of area it is.
What it feels like and just get a general feel for the place. You know, walk around, talk to a few people, ask them what it's like to live there. Now, don't buy a home because you like the kitchen or the bathroom. They're superficial things. They can be changed. So
yes, he is right, but kitchens sell houses, bathrooms sell houses. But he is right, you can renovate a property. Sometimes you gotta think not with your heart, but with your head. You have to look as if, obviously, I said don't buy the potential of the area, but in a house sense, if everything ticks your boxes, but the kitchen isn't the prettiest, you can get a new kitchen. But yeah, I agree with this. Don't buy because the kitchen is nice, but the area is terrible. You're paying above asking price, and so on and so forth.
Amazing how many people make the biggest, most important purchase of their life just because they walk in and they love the kitchen or they love the bathroom and they suddenly see themselves living there. More important are things like how much living space you got, if you've got parking space, if you've got a car, how much storage space you got. A lot of properties don't have very much storage space. Now, this one's going to sound a bit obvious, but you've got to work out what your budget is. Work out how much money you can realistically beg, borrow or steal from your grandparents.
This is very true.
And see if realistically beg, borrow or steal from your grandparents, and see if you can buy a property that fits into that category. Because
now, budgeting is one of the most important decisions when it comes to buying a property. The reason I say that is just because you can get a £400,000 mortgage doesn't mean you should. You have to consider, what are the interest rates over the next 5 years? Because that's the average fixed term you can get in the UK on the high end. You can get 2, but that's been thrown out a little bit. Secondly, you have to look at, how much is a total mortgage going to cost in terms of the principal and the interest? And also any loans you also got to get the down payment or to get the property. If, let's say, for example, you bring in, let's say, as a joint income of 2 parties, £3,000 a month after taxes, then getting a mortgage that costs you £2,000 a month with interest and principal put together is a little bit dangerous in that sense, because you have to consider, in the next 5 years, how likely are we to change jobs, to not be working? What happens if one of us doesn't work? So having a budget that makes you have a lot of wiggle room is essential, because things break, roofs break. You have to replace certain things, especially when you buy a house. So, and also maintenance isn't free. So having a budget that has a healthy chunk of money that you can have on the side every single month for housing expenses is very essential. And if, let's say, within a year that amount piles up and you don't use it, you can chuck it back in your mortgage. So having a budget is very important.
There's nothing wrong with ambition. We all want to buy the best house in the best road. But if you find that you've bought something that you really can't afford the repayments on, and you end up chucking the keys in after a couple of years, all that money is wasted, and it can put you off property buying for life. So buy with your head and not your heart.
Facts.
So once you've worked out what you can realistically afford, it's a good idea to go and get yourself a pre-approved mortgage. Talk to a few mortgage lenders, tell them what you earn, tell them what your outgoings are likely to be, and then they'll be able to work out a figure that they're willing to lend you and maybe your partner. That way, when you go to the estate agent, you're a better proposition, you're a more realistic buyer.
Yeah, this is important, very important actually, because it takes about 5 minutes to get pre-approved, really, online especially. If you go in person, it's a bit longer, but that allows you to know the budget that you can get. In fact, before getting pre-approved, there's a lot of mortgage calculators based upon your income and your outgoings and your debt and the the length you've been in your current position and role and how stable your job is, you can find a lot of calculators that will give you an estimate of how much an average mortgage lender can lend you. Even having that can help you understand, okay, let me make an assumption that's a bit less than that, and then start looking for houses only in that range.
Find yourself an estate agent you can trust. Now, that sounds like a bit of a joke, doesn't it? Because estate agents have got about as much trust as plumbers, solicitors and double glazing salesmen. And of course you can do it all online, but the thing that a local estate agent brings to the party is they know the area, they know what the properties are worth, and they can probably help you save you a bit of time looking at properties that you're never ever going to buy. Think very carefully about leasehold properties. They can be a minefield.
Okay. This is an important fact. There is a leasehold and a freehold. So a leasehold is that you are leasing the property for a set amount of time. So what that means is technically it's your house until the lease ends. So oftentimes this comes in the fact of flats. Flats are often leasehold properties. Normally they have maybe 100 years on the lease. So that means you can buy the property and it's yours, basically. But within 100 years, the property will no longer be yours. Whereas freehold is that you actually own the land that the house sits on. You could demolish it, you could literally do nothing, and that house is yours, basically, as long as you fully paid off your mortgage.
The idea of a leasehold property is you don't actually ever own it completely. The land is owned by somebody else and you pay a rent to stay on it. Now, leases are often 99 years, so you think, okay, I'm not going to live that long, what's the problem? But if you get a new landlord and that landlord has got ambitions, they want to put the prices up, they want to change a few things, you can find yourself in difficulty. But I would say if you could possibly avoid it, get yourself a freehold property. So the good news is that the law is going to change on leasehold properties, and leaseholders are going to have more rights. Surveys and surveyors. Well, when you get a mortgage, the mortgage companies probably want to send around a valuation surveyor just to check that the property is worth the money.
I agree, and if possible, I would send more than one just to cover yourself.
That they're going to lend you on it. But over and above that, you might want a full structural survey. It's a sensible thing to do. But the problem is with surveyors is that there's good ones, there's bad ones. Some of them are quite lazy. And when you look at the survey report and you see that they said we couldn't examine the state of the floorboards because there were fitted carpets, we couldn't see what was going on in the loft because there was too much junk up there, we couldn't see whether the property was built out of brick or concrete because it was rendered. Quite honestly, sometimes you're better off just finding a friendly local builder who knows a little bit about properties and they can just run their eye over it, and often they can spot the things that are wrong very, very quickly.
That's true. For example, seeing like signs of mold, seeing if damp proofing was put in place is also important, and checking for structural elements like, is the roof intact, are the walls straight, are there any load bearing, is there potential to expand, can you build up, is the foundation strong enough to build more stories in your property, can you remove certain things. So it's very important to have this in place.
The only trouble with that, of course, is you've got nobody to sue if they fail to spot something that becomes a major problem in the future. Okay, so you found a property, you negotiated a price, but you haven't really figured for all the extras. You've got your stamp duty, possibly, you've got your conveyance fees, you've got your solicitors, you've got insurances. Everybody wants to take a bit of money out of your pocket.
You need to have quite a bit of money saved up on top of your deposit. So let's say you're looking to get a £200,000 house and you want to put £10,000 in cash just to get a little 5% deposit in place, right? Yes, that's not all you need. You will need probably another 5 to 10,000 on top of that, just for the legal stuff. So in total, your £10,000 mortgage plus another maybe 6, 7,000 pound could be, we'll add a total of maybe 16, 17,000 pounds just to get the property, and you need that in cash basically, because there is solicitors, there is surveys, there's so much involved that is needed just to get to the point of closing, that you need to have the cash to play with.
Which leaves you precious little for doing those necessary jobs. Now, if you buy a fixer-upper, and everybody loves that idea of buying a property, doing it up in their own way, don't underestimate how much this is going to cost. These days, even builders are shocked by the price increases in building materials. They go to price a job and then they find that they're losing money because the prices have shot up. Whatever it costs this year, it's going to cost more next year. And of course, you've got the builders themselves. They don't want to work for nothing. And if you find a property that you love, it's a sort of fixer-upper, you think you can renovate it, you can do a lot of the work yourself, well, good luck to you. I've done that, and it does take an awful big chunk out of your life doing it.
That's true. Time is also a big factor. And not even that, is oftentimes when you start removing things or start demolishing things, you actually start finding more problems than you first thought. That's why sometimes it might be cheaper to just buy a house that already has what you need than to buy a fixer-upper, assume you're gonna get a massive bargain, and then realize that, oh, maybe the actual parts to buy, like a new kitchen, a new bathroom, is pretty cheap, but the labor, can you actually have the skills to do it? Can you tile? Can you plumb? Can you do electrics? Can you put damp proofing in place? Can you plaster? Like, all of those cost a lot of money just labor wise. So factor in timing and skill. Sometimes it's just better to just get a house that just works.
You learn a lot along the way, and it can be fun. But if you don't have that kind of staying power after a couple of years of doing that, you just wish you'd never started. By all means, find an old wreck, do it up, make some money, or make yourself a lovely home that you want to stay in for a good long time. Now, when you buy a home, a flat or a house, you have to make up your mind whether this is just a stepping stone for you, whether you're going to be moving on.
Yes, I agree with this completely. The length you stay in that property affects everything. If you're just buying to get on the ladder, buy cheap and pay as much off as possible. If you are looking to stay in the house for like your forever home, then buy a property that, yes, has potential, but more importantly is like almost already there. So that way there's less headache, less stress, and you're living there. So yeah.
To greater things. We all want to move up, we've all got ambitions, but you have to be realistic about how quickly you can do that. Now, if you want to start a family, you obviously need a little bit more space than some pokey little one-bedroom flat. But if you're sure that you only want to stay in the property for maybe 5 years, get yourself a foot on the ladder before you move on up, then that's absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about things like schools and having too much space. Now, can you make money on property? You buy a property and you see the prices going up, and you see people rubbing their hands and saying, oh, best.
Most money in property is not made because the houses go up or that the equity is really crazy. Even the money you make in property is the money of not paying rent. It's that you are paying down your own, I guess, house. So let's say you get £100,000 house theoretically, and you're paying 20% in mortgage fees. So let's say you buy that house for 100 grand, but over the lifetime of the house you pay back 120,000 pounds. Even if the house lost money, that £100,000 is still yours basically. The main reason I'm saying that, maybe 90-80 grand, is because when you're renting, let's say you spend 100 grand in renting, after you move out, what happens to that money? It's not yours. It's gone. So even if the house prices goes up or down, if you get a mortgage, you're kind of setting your future up, because a house will rarely depreciate down to zero. But if you're renting, the house it's not yours ever. So let's hear what he has to say.
Money I ever made, and sometimes putting a lot of work into a property and then selling it on for a profit. You think that's a profit, but when you actually factor in the time you spent and the materials and everything else, it may be that the increase in price is only due to market rates going up.
Yeah, you know what? It's such a good video, actually. But to conclude, if you're buying a property, make sure there's no mold, it's structurally sound, you have done a few surveys, your own surveys, you've actually spent some time in the area, make a plan in terms of how long do you plan to live there. If you are just watching this video and you're like, I want to buy a house in the UK and I don't even know what I can get, even if you are a single person, go online, do some calculators. They don't take your personal details. Well, actually, you never know. But anyway, do an online calculator. See how much potentially you can get a mortgage. NatWest, Barclays also do like online calculators as well that can tell you. And once you've had a look in terms of, okay, what kind of house can I get? Have a quick look on Zoopla, Rightmove, On the Market. These are all apps to find houses. See what's in that price range, and then look at your life to see, okay, do I want to get a property? What's the down payment needed? And you can start the process. It's buying a house is like, once you have the money, it's just about time. So if you want to buy a house, start saving. My advice is save about 20% of the house's value in terms of you trying to buy it. That way you can put maybe 10% down if you have to, and the rest can go to legal fees, solicitors, everybody that takes a penny out of the whole journey. So 20% is a good amount. That way you can put 10% to the house and the rest to spending. But what you guys think? Do you guys own a house? Are you looking to buy a house? Thanks for watching. I want your comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.